political analyst, Middle East analyst, all good. Yeah.
Oh boy. It's like fires all around the world, man.
Yeah. It's a dark time. I
It's
don't
a
know.
dark time. I'm joined by Omar Baddar, my former colleague from Al Jazeera Americas The Stream. He is a political commentator and an expert on Israel Palestine. You have seen him on international news and domestic news. Sometimes he's probably debating Piers Morgan. Omar joins me because, folks, there's a lot of fires burning around the world. Everyone's talking about Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson. We're talking about Pam Bondi and the right wing that was all about cancel culture and against cancel culture and the free speech, and now threatening anyone who says anything bad about Charlie Kirk, they're going to crush them. Well, we've seen that already for Palestine. Pro-Palestinian activists crushed, pro-Palestinian student groups crushed, people losing their jobs, people who are speaking out against genocide and apartheid are being smeared. Mahmoud Khalil imprisoned for 100 days, right, without any evidence whatsoever of wrongdoing. Rumeza Ozturk was picked up by ICE for writing an op-ed. However, the times they are changing, Omar. Right now, as Israel advances in its genocidal campaign, what we just found out a couple hours ago is that Israel has launched a ground invasion in Gaza. As that has happened, the United Nations has come out and says that Israel is committing a genocide. And furthermore, we see that a lot of young Jewish voters in New York are for Zoran Mamdani, not in spite of his views on Palestine, but because of it. And then you saw this week Javier Bardem, one of the biggest stars in the world, openly wear a keffiyeh at the Emmys and say, I'm not going to work with any institution that supports the genocide. And Hannah Einbender, who is Jewish, used her speech to say F ICE and free Palestine. So as Israel advances all in with this genocidal campaign, with the backing, folks, I know that people don't like hearing this, Democratic leaders and Republicans, the world seems to be waking up. So we're going to break it all down. Let's break it down first and foremost with what's happening in Israel, and Israel openly telling the world, we don't care. We're going to do a ground invasion in Gaza. Break that down for people who don't understand.
Yeah. Waj, I think you're honestly connecting it all together very beautifully. I think we are looking at a situation in which Israel understands that it lost the PR war. They don't care anymore about the fact it's all plain. You can't pretend that what Israel's doing is not a genocide. It's quite clear, quite obvious that there is a systematic destruction of an entire people that is unfolding before our eyes. We know it from the testimony of doctors who go and visit and come back and say they are literally using Palestinian children and toddlers as target practice. Israeli snipers are. That's the level of depravity that is being imposed on Palestinians right now. And this push to capture Gaza, Netanyahu is ordering the entire population of Gaza out of the city, saying we're in to effectively take it over. And you had the Israeli defense minister, Katz, so-called defense minister. Frankly, if they renamed their defense ministry to
Genocidal
Ministry of
minister?
War, exactly. Yeah, it is the Ministry of Genocide at this point. And he's, when they talk in English to American media outlets, they say, oh no, we're doing everything we can to avoid civilian casualties. We're only targeting Hamas. This is an accident. And yet, when you look at the tweets of Katz, it's quite open that what they're doing is destroying all of Gaza. He's literally bragging about how there are no more tall buildings in Gaza because they flattened all of them. That is how they are talking about what they're doing to Palestinians in Gaza. It is a genocide. There's no question about it. And even though the world culturally and politically has turned against Israel in terms of commentary and public opinion, the supply lines for Israel to be able to do this is American military support. And as long as that continues from the Trump administration, I think Netanyahu is just pushing ahead. He's not going to be deterred until there is a real consequence, and that consequence does not look like it's going to be anywhere in sight. I think, Waj, what they're trying to do is they look at the legacy of the United States. Everybody in the U.S. says if you could go back several hundred years, of course, what was done to the Native Americans was horrible. Of course, it was genocide. But we're a different world now, and we've learned something from it. And I think that what Netanyahu is looking at is literally replicating that exact thing of saying, let's go ahead and commit the worst atrocities we possibly can. Let's get rid of Palestinians. And maybe in a few hundred years, we'll just say, oh, we feel really bad about it, but let's make it a done deal. That's the vision that he has. And the question is the world in 2025 going to allow that to happen before our eyes? That's, I guess we'll wait to find out how that turns out.
Well, the answer so far is yes, because, I was talking to a few friends yesterday and said, like, even if the world is against it, it's all about power. And the United States still, despite us destroying ourselves and receding in the world, nonetheless, is the military might of the world. And Donald Trump, who said he would be America first, has been dog walked by Netanyahu. I don't know if you've been following. There's so many interesting threads that are connecting. I don't know if you saw Candace Owens yesterday, her hour and a half
I missed
take.
it.
She's angry. She exposed that Netanyahu was pressuring Charlie Kirk, and Netanyahu wanted to give Charlie Kirk $150 million for Turning Points USA to be more pro-Israel. And Bill Ackman pressured Charlie Kirk and said, you have to be all in and you can't waffle on this. And you see fissures within the right when it comes to Israel because, people want to be America first. Also, some of them are anti-Semitic. Also, some of them have been radicalized by the rest of us, especially young people, regardless of their political affiliation, by what they see as a genocide. So you're seeing this growing rage and anger against Israel, against Benjamin Netanyahu. Some of it, of course, comes from a very legitimate, I would say, radicalization of people all around the world in what they see as a genocide stream to their phones. Other part of it is America first, where why are we sending our money, like you said, to Israel, a foreign country? And another part of it is anti-Semitism, and it's kind of mixed together in this hodgepodge. But what it is a growing anger towards Israel. And I was reading today in one of these mainstream corporate outlets that Israel might have its South Africa moment of the 80s. Which is fascinating for you and me because we're old.
Yeah,
Do you think we're at this point? Because I think it's even worse than South Africa in the 80s. Because for South Africa was apartheid. This is
yeah.
apartheid, occupation, settlements, a very close relationship with the United States, crackdown on U.S. civil liberties, freedom of speech, students. Oh yeah, and a genocide. Your take on
Yeah.
it?
I think that's exactly right. It is the domestic component of this is what's unique about it. There's been many atrocities overseas. They happen. The U.S. eventually decides to turn its back on them because of building public pressure. But in the case of Israel, the lobby is so powerful within the country that you're seeing, because they know they can't win the argument on merit anymore, what they're what they pivoted to is the crushing of free speech and open debate. That is the only thing they have left. That is the only way to shut it down. And that does relate to Charlie Kirk. I just want to be clear that I'm not by in any way promoting the conspiracy theory that
Oh
Israel's
no, no,
behind
no.
this killing.
I think yeah. I
Yeah,
thought that was anyone who watches me knows that absolutely. We're not promoting the conspiracy theory. We're just talking about how it's so interesting that yesterday, if you all watched, there were 300,000 people who turned into Candace Owens, and she didn't blame Israel Aldo, but she was talking about allegedly pressure that Charlie Kirk had from Bill Ackman, who is a
yeah,
pro. Israel nutty billionaire. You've read his stupid tweets online and how they were allegedly upset at Charlie Kirk and Turning Points
yeah,
USA for not doing more for Israel. And Charlie Kirk was uncomfortable because he didn't necessarily want to align himself with what's happening in Israel. And also there's a fissure within the right wing when it comes to supporting Israel right now.
yeah. And
So
that
just to clarify for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And that part is absolutely factual. Charlie Kirk took on to his donors the fact that there's so much building pressure in the right wing base that Israel's actions are becoming indefensible, and everywhere he goes, he runs into it. And that is becoming a problem, saying that we have a problem on our hands. That is, of course, once Charlie Kirk was killed, there's also no question about the fact that Israeli politicians immediately jumped on this to exploit it to their benefit.
Can you tell them? Because it was
Uh,
fascinating to watch. Tell
yeah,
people what they did. It's
it's
remarkable.
it's incredible. I mean, they have a giant mural now for Charlie Kirk. You have Netanyahu doing multiple interviews. I mean, just it's become his lead issue is just talking about what a strong friend to Israel Charlie Kirk was, and it's funny given the fact that this was at the time in which there was clearly significant turmoil within the Charlie Kirk's institution about the fact that support for Israel is becoming untenable and that something has got to give somewhere. So this could not
And
have
folks,
been.
for those who didn't pay attention to it, Benjamin Netanyahu was interviewed by Greta Susteren on Newsmax. And literally she asked him, Israel had nothing to do with the assassination because the people who are promoting that conspiracy are on the right wing. So even right now, if you've been following, and if you haven't, consider yourself lucky, even there's portions of MAGA that do not that are openly not trusting Kash Patel and the Trump government and their handling of Charlie Kirk. Candace Owens is one of them. Mike Savage is another. Other trolls are saying it had to be a foreign shooter. All these conspiracies. So even even the transgender ideology conspiracy before we had any facts that is pushed right now by MAGA, even that is being rejected by certain aspects of MAGA. And Candace Owens used her platform yesterday to expose this meeting that Max Blumenthal wrote about, where certain allies and donors of Israel allegedly pressured Charlie Kirk to do more, and he felt deeply uncomfortable. And she said he was really afraid. He was really worried about this bullying and this attacks on him. So you're seeing the fissures on the right with Tucker Carlson openly going against Israel, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, and then talk to us about what's happening on the left and how the leadership is not responding to what's happening on the left in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, the public opinion shift on the left is even infinitely more drastic about the fact that the overwhelming majority of people, the Democratic Party base, completely opposes continuing to give weapons to Israel. It's just overwhelming. It's not even close. Saying, what on earth are we doing? This is a genocide. We have to stop supporting it. And the political leadership in the Democratic Party is entirely disconnected from their base. It's, we flaunt the idea that we're a democracy. We talk about how we're the greatest democracy in the world. But when you look at the sheer contrast between what American public opinion is and what American policy is, there's no question about the fact that we have a deeply broken and dysfunctional democracy. And that, obviously, in the case of Donald Trump, it's infinitely worse, given his authoritarian and fascist tendencies and complete disregard for rules and checks and balances and all of that. But we can't pretend it doesn't exist on the Democratic side, because to this point, the primary leadership is afraid to break ranks and come to the realization that we're in a different phase and a different moment right now. There was a time in which if AIPAC said jump, you said how high, and anything short of that meant the destruction of your political career. But that is not the moment that we're in anymore. They can't wield unlimited leverage. The country has woken up. People are aware of how atrocious Israel's policies are. They want nothing to do with them. And to stand up and oppose AIPAC at this point gets you even more support. Case in point, Mamdani in New York. To have every single virtually every single opponent of his lineup and asked about where you would go to a foreign country, and everybody's just barking one after the other, Israel, 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 like kind of like trained lapdogs. And it came to him and he said, I don't want to go to Israel. I want to stay in New York and take care of my city, take care of our Jewish community here in New York. He just decoupled that idea of sort of supporting the American Jewish community from and the idea that you have to be supportive of Israel. Those are completely separate things. And the fact that you have significant numbers of Jewish New Yorkers supporting him and turning out for him and helping him win this nomination tells you everything about how much the country has shifted on this question. And yet we have dinosaurs in Congress whose relationships with AIPAC are so deep, whose mindset is so outdated that I don't know what it's going to take to wake them up. They might have to just be defeated politically and get new leadership. Now, I have
Even Andrew Cuomo, did you see, is
yeah,
trying to distance himself from Israel, and then people are bringing out the receipts.
yeah, and the fact that he offered to be a lawyer for Netanyahu at the International Criminal Court, I think, yeah, that's not an easy one for people to forget. I mean, just how incredibly despicable it is that you watch literally the worst thing happening on the planet right now. I'm not going to say in history, obviously, many, many far greater atrocities in history, but you'd be hard pressed to think of anything that anybody who's going through something worse in this moment than what Gaza is experiencing. Just a systematic, televised genocide, systematic destruction in a way that we've never seen before. We've never seen it televised before. That's a new phenomenon. And even in the face of that, and even in the face of the leader who's imposing and carrying out this genocide in front of the cameras, being wanted by the International Criminal Court for obvious crimes that they've all but confessed for. And then to have Andrew Cuomo come out and say that he's going to try to defend him at the International Criminal Court. I mean, yeah,
Well,
you thought you've
and
seen
in
the
addition,
depths.
I try to keep the receipts, Omar. 2 months ago, when Netanyahu made his visit, he's visited, I believe, 3 times already. 2 or 3 times already he's visited during the Trump administration. It was mid-July. Did you see that photo, that bipartisan photo? Cory Booker was there, Senator
Yeah,
Schumer was smiling, Adam Schiff, Jackie Rosen, Amy Klobuchar, Chris Coons. This was in July. It's
yeah,
not like, oh, like 2 years ago. I'm talking about like 2 months ago.
yeah,
And the Gallup poll came out, the Pew poll came out, the CNN poll came out, the Quinnipiac poll just came out, which all tracks what you were saying is that the overwhelming majority of Democrats, their own base, do not want to support Netanyahu, Israel, or the genocide. And these people literally proudly took a photo with them. I mean, explain that phenomenon to us.
yeah. And I mean, you could see Cory Booker was trying to hide in the background. I don't know if you saw
Yeah,
that or not.
where's
It was
Waldo?
just, yeah. And like it tells you about the conflict that they have within them. It's just political opportunists who want to be on the right side of every issue. They don't know how this is going to turn out ultimately. Is it going to be ultimately more favorable to be pro-Israel or anti-Israel in the long distance or whatever? and they just want to try to have it both ways. But I'm sorry, you can't both sides a genocide. History will remember where you stood, and if you did not scream out loud in very clear and explicit opposition to this, and did not take meaningful actions to say we have to stop supporting it, I don't think that history is not going to remember them well at
You
all.
know what's so interesting, and I think the reason why we're sticking on this, folks, is with Republicans you can't move them. It's whatever Donald Trump wants. He's a hypocrite. He got dog walked by Israel, America first, but then he bombs Iran. He's grifting, just the worst grift ever. Witkoff and his father made like Witkoff and his son are making billions. Trump and his son are making like they don't give a shit. With Democrats, they're at least somewhat amenable to change. And Omar and I are old enough, and we've been in this long enough that the litmus test used to be you support Israel no matter what. If you don't, it's over. I think there's a fascinating new litmus test now, Omar, and the data seems to back it up. For Democrats, particularly, is if you support Netanyahu and Israel, that could be a litmus test for your viability moving forward as a leader of the Democratic Party. And I don't know if you've seen the numbers when it comes to Dan Goldman and what they're really worried about. Can you talk to us about, even in New York, what's happening when it comes to Dan Goldman versus Brad Lander and Zoran Mamdani? Because I've been telling people there's two litmus tests for Democrats. Number one, are you willing to go against the oligarchy? Are you willing to go against corporate money? And number two, it's Israel. And it was already prevalent to most of us during the Kamala Harris campaign.
Yeah.
YouGov came out and said the number one reason why Democrats stayed at home was because of Biden and Kamala Harris's position on Gaza. And Democrats were like, shut the F up. You shut up and you vote for us. And they didn't even have a Palestinian speaker. And even now, they still, it seems Jeffries and Schumer still haven't learned. So, I don't know. I'm not God. I'm not in their head. They must be reading the same polls that we're reading. But are they attached to the AIPAC money? And or is it ideology? Because for Biden, based on what I've seen of him, what I've heard of him, talking to people who were in the administration, talking to people who resigned, he was an ideologically committed Zionist. He was able to change on everything, but he was stuck in 1970s. What's your take on this Democratic leadership? Is it just the money? Is it just fear of the attack on AIPAC, or is it also ideological?
We should remember that with Biden, his ideological commitment to Israel went as far as to betray Obama with Netanyahu. That when Obama was applying pressure on Netanyahu, Biden would privately tell Netanyahu, "Don't listen. It's okay. It's not gonna. Nothing is gonna happen. Feel free to ignore Obama." That came out in I think Axios reporting. I mean, that to me is a level of betrayal of the president that is just incredible. So yes, I don't think that you can move Biden. This is not being part of the political machine. This is a deeply personal commitment in a way that I think with the current folks, with Schumer and Jeffries, I think that's just a political machine that exists around them. I think it is absolutely the money, the donors. That's what they know and who they know. And it's about being out of touch with where the country is and just relying on your circle. It is very much the same reason why Democrats lost the last presidential election and why I don't know if they're going to learn their lessons quickly enough. You have a destructive force on the other side in Donald Trump that is absolutely a threat to, I don't want to sound dramatic, but I think it's not crazy to say literally the survival of American democracy in the coming few years.
No,
I
for
don't know
sure.
whether we make it out of this
I
Trump
don't know if we make it out either.
attack. So in the face of this threat, to have your base saying, and in this case, part of the movement calling for Palestinian rights, the uncommitted and so on, they were not even asking for a maximalist position of please shift your position on this radically. They were asking for crumbs. They were saying, give us anything. We don't want to vote for Trump. We want to make it clear that people should turn out and vote for the Democrats. Can you give us anything? Can you just let a Palestinian on stage and speak at the DNC? And the answer was still to kick those activists in the face and say, you get nothing, get out of our faces.
Omar, can you stress that? Because I think it's very important. There's a lot of, I got a lot of Biden and Harris and Democrat vote blue no matter who like attack me and blame me. And I'm like, I'm just the messenger. They're like, all these Palestinians, and all these pro-Palestinian activists. And, these uncommitted people, I think it's important to remind them that they did not support Donald Trump. They wanted to vote Democrats. They ultimately did vote Democrats. But during the primaries, they were saying, and during the DNC, they were saying, we're using what little leverage we have just to try to push this Democratic administration to humanize Palestinians and just have one speaker, right? I think it's very important for people to just set the record straight, because they were like, oh, they were going to torpedo Harris no matter what. These people were very strategic and very democratic.
Yeah. They wanted something, anything to say, we want to be able to look in the face of, at this point, a genocide that had unfolded for well over a year, just utter devastation. And we wanted to say you should still turn out and support the people whose policy is this. And you wanted to give them a reason to be able to say we have to vote for them. And it was anything. And it was, in a way, it's funny, the I told you so bizarrely now being directed at young people whose families have ties in Palestine and in Gaza, who are saying, if you don't fix your policy on this, we're going to end up with a much worse situation with Donald Trump. Somehow the I told you so comes from them, as in, see, Trump is worse. How do you like it now? I think they have it entirely backwards. We've been saying, if you don't fix your policy on this, we're going to end up with Donald Trump. If anything, the wake up call is for them. They screwed this. The burden is always on the politicians themselves to earn the votes of the people. And when we are warning you that the current path of continuing to arm Israel's genocide without any reservation is morally depraved and monstrous and indefensible, it is strategically idiotic in terms of America's position in the world. If you're going to be talking about the US leading the free world and international law and human rights and freedom and democracy and all of that, that's all destroyed as a result of this policy. And more narrowly, it is politically idiotic because you are helping Donald Trump get elected. To have faced all of that and to still insist on going the course, I think that is a complete and utter failure of the Democratic establishment. Nobody has the right to point at the movement and say, we told you so. Look, how do you like the outcome? You created the outcome. And if you don't learn from it, we are bound to continue being stuck in a spiral that is going to be very, very dark for this country's future. We're already seeing how Donald Trump is weaponizing everything against our people. We're seeing just, I don't think I've ever seen I never imagined that we're going to be at this point of authoritarianism and power grab within the United States in a way that just everybody is folding. And yeah, it's a very, very dark political moment right now.
Sadly, I did believe that.
Yeah.
It's the world's worst I told you so. It's unfolding. It's the one thing I've been consistently right about is I take Donald Trump literally and seriously. And we're in it, folks. We're in it. I don't know if we get out of it. And if we do, there's still going to be massive, what people haven't realized, Omar, is there's already massive generational damage that has been done internationally, domestically, to America's reputation, to our economy, to our national security, to our trade relations, and to human rights and the rule of law. And you see this playing out in Gaza. This is generational damage. And speaking about generational damage, there's a genocide. And Israel has also, folks, expanded this war. I mean, people always talk about Gaza as they should because over 60,000 Palestinians have been killed. That's an undercount. We even haven't talked about the West Bank because the horrors in Gaza are so terrible that, the horrors of the West Bank get dwarfed by it. But the West Bank, it's apartheid, it's occupation. The settlers have become more violent and free-for-all under this Israeli extremist regime of Netanyahu, Smotrich, and Ben Gvir. If you don't know these names, consider yourselves lucky. But straight up, as an Israeli journalist told me, imagine if a KKK Grand Dragon was the National Security Minister of the United States of America. That's Ben Gvir. Openly. These people, much like the Trump administration, much like the new MAGA Trumpers, are open in their contempt for Palestinians, their genocidal intentions and ambitions. There's no subtlety, right? In addition to that, I have to ask you this because there's a huge piece of news that people are kind of forgetting that also impacts the United States and I think also shows Trump's weakness. And going back full circle to your point where Netanyahu does not give an F. He's like, I'm an old man. I'm desperate. I have to keep this war going. F it. Maximalist position. Get everything. Trail of tears this. Do to Palestinians what America did to indigenous Americans. Kill them all, right? Israel has done 35,000 targeted strikes against Palestinians, Iran, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. People don't know that, right? That's another big thing. This is not just Gaza. But then they also went and bombed Qatar, a non-NATO ally where the United States has our biggest base outside of the United States of America. Qatar's pissed. And back and forth. Now Trump said, oh, we didn't know. Then they said, oh, no, we did know. Now they're saying, oh, we didn't know. Talk to us about that, because I don't think people are paying attention to that dangerous expansion by Israel.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it does not pass the smell test that the Trump administration did not know of that strike. There's a massive U.S. military base in Qatar. If the Israeli military is flying planes towards Qatar, just pure logistics. America would know about it. Otherwise, there could be a military confrontation if they don't know what foreign jets are entering the airspace. So 1,000% the Trump administration knew about this. The question is, did they okay it or not or whatever? I think Trump's attitude is basically tell Israel to just go ahead and do it. And then afterwards, we'll pretend that we had a problem with it and we didn't like it. And that's exactly how it played out. And it is absolutely a message that Israel is sending to the entire region with the endorsement of the Trump administration, which is to say, it doesn't matter if you're a US ally. Israel rules all. Israel is in charge. Israel owns this region with the endorsement of the United States. And so that's a question because there was always this illusion that for governments in the region, if you choose the path of Lebanon or Syria previously or Iran or whatever, of sort of opposition to American empire and to Israel, then you're going to be on the target list. But there is safety in being on the other side. There's safety in being on the side of the United States. That's the choice that Qatar and many other countries have made, which is to say, as long as we're allied with the US, we host US military bases, we basically respond to whatever the US asks of us. That does not guarantee safety anymore. This is the new
We'll
world that we're
give
announcing.
Donald Trump a $400 million luxury jet. We'll be like ABC News and throw George Stephanopoulos under the bus and give Donald Trump $16 million.
Yep.
And today, Donald Trump looked at Jonathan Karl in the face and threatened ABC News again.
Yep, exactly. That is exactly it. They're not learning that capitulation here in this case. If there was ever a moment to stand up and offer a real defiant response, this was it. But if you want the truth, Israel may not be wrong in this case, which is that what they're going to do is eat it and do nothing, which is effectively what's happening so far. I don't know if there's something bubbling up more behind the scenes, but so far, there was a lot of anticipation about all the Arab and Muslim countries meeting and whatever. There's going to be this massive response. What you saw was a condemnation of what Israel did and then nothing. Because ultimately, this is not a united bloc by any stretch of the imagination. They are infinitely divided. And the countries that have a strong interest with the United States, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they're not going to stick their necks out for Qatar's sake. They're not going to upset their relationship with the Trump administration over this. And because there was no unity, you ultimately saw no meaningful action, which means Israel's still operating on this divide and conquer mindset. And so far, it's working for them. You know that
But
public
so
opinion.
far, I think
Yeah,
that's a key thing, Omar, because I don't see how this lasts. This is
exactly.
Israel's increasingly isolated. Israel, in my opinion, has lost the youth. Once you lose the youth, you're done, like South Africa. It's
Yep.
lost the culture. We'll talk about it for a second. It's lost the narrative. Folks, as Israel has launched this ground war in Gaza, it's always been, that's what they've been doing, but still, it's officially said, Trail of Tears, Gaza, that Israel has committed genocide in Gaza according to the United Nations Commission. So that's a UN commission, Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem, Amnesty International, Omar Bertov, international scholars of genocide. All of them are out now. All of them are coming out. You see the Israeli conductor. I don't know if you saw that video of the Israeli conductor stood up in London. He said, "I'm from Israel. This has to end." You saw Javier Bardem at the Emmys wearing a keffiyeh. He used his F1 presser just to talk about the genocide, which was awesome. I don't know if you saw
Yep.
that. He wore the keffiyeh at the Emmys, came out straight up and said, "I'm not going to work with anyone who's an institution that supports an Israeli institution that commits genocide." So doing straight up boycotts. And Hacks actress Hannah Einbender came out.
Mhm.
She said a terrible statement, "Go Birds," but then after that she said "F ICE and free Palestine." Um, Once you lose the culture and the youth and the narrative,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time, Omar.
It's only a matter of
And the
time.
sad part is, of course, in that matter of time, there's a genocide and people die. But I'm talking about map this out for me.
Yeah. Waj, I think you're 1,000% right. And the problem is, I think Israel sees that as well. And so right now, we are in a race against time. Israel knows it can't operate with this impunity forever. It knows accountability is coming. How long it's going to be, I don't know. But they know that in the next few years, at least as long as Trump is president, they have carte blanche to do whatever they want to do. And they are determined to get rid of Palestinians within that span. And that's what terrifies me. Is yes, of course the world is turning on Israel. Of course, you can't televise a genocide and not have people turn against you. You can't commit these horrors day in and day out of mutilated children and destroyed buildings and weeping families, and to say this is great and we love doing it and we're going to keep doing it more and not have people turn against you. The question is the world going to intervene? Is that awakening going to have real material consequences in time when there is still a Palestine to save? That's the big question. And the burden is on us to answer that in the affirmative, to say we need to act right now. No, a single ounce of pressure is too much. Everything that we can muster, we have to do absolutely everything we can, because the consequence of every single day is literally life or death for someone somewhere in Palestine. And we just can't afford to wait, and we have to be able to save every life that we can in the meantime. And in the long term, the idea of a Palestinian nation that should not be just remembered in the history books, but something that very much has to be helped to survive. And that depends on every person listening, making sure that we take meaningful action in any way that we can to put an end to this.
I want to bring it full circle and talking about the United States of America, because everyone who says, well, why this issue? Why not the Rohingya, and why not Ukraine, and why not like Sudan? And, some of us are like, yeah, we condemn all of that as well. It's not either or. But I think what you just articulated is the reason why the United States is such an important actor in this is because the United States still is the most powerful country on earth. The United States gives Israel money. It gives Israel weapons. It gives Israel bullets. It gives Israel international and diplomatic cover. Without the United States support, military support, financial support, Israel could not do this genocide. And Donald Trump so far has been dogwalked by Netanyahu. Donald Trump's base is white Christian nationalists. The number one Zionist group, the biggest, largest Zionist group in America, is Christians United for Israel. Mike Huckabee is a true believer. He is the ambassador to Israel, white Christian nationalists, right? These people don't like Jews, folks. They love Israel. They don't care for Jews. For them, Israel is a chess piece for the end of time narrative. They believe that Jews have to control Jerusalem as a necessary precondition for the second coming of Jesus. Jesus comes back, and the first people that he kills is Jews. Then Muslims, by the way, because we don't convert, apparently. But Israel, as you can see, is under Netanyahu's leadership, I'll use the words, it's a cancer. It's a cancer to the Middle East. It's a cancer to Jewish security. It's a cancer to stoking anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. It's just death for Palestinians. Its attachment to the United States right now weakens the United States. It is in our interest, it seems, Omar, to, as the bigger brother, the older brother, the more powerful brother, whatever analogy you want to give, a loving brother, the special friendship the United States has with Israel. If your friend, your brother that you love is a drunk driver, I think it's our responsibility not to give him the keys to the Porsche. It's to be like, I'm going to keep the keys away from you until you sober up. And all these people say, oh, what can America do? It can't do anything. And I'm reminded of 1982 when Reagan, that flaming leftist Reagan, saw the war crimes that Israel was doing in Lebanon, picked up the phone, called Prime Minister Begin and said, I see war crimes. You better stop this. And 20 minutes later, the Prime Minister said, ceasefire. I mean, can you, if you can, for those who don't connect the dots, the unique position of the United States of America to actually end the genocide, end the expansion of settlements, and use its power to try to direct Israel towards a more sane path.
Yeah, we absolutely can do that overnight. It is, to your point, if you cut off the weapons, Israel physically cannot do what they're doing without the endless supply of American weapons. They were already the largest recipient of U.S. military funding, $4 billion every single year, year after year. And then now to do Gaza, we've just thrown tens of billions at them in addition to that. And when they pick a completely unnecessary and a dumb fight with Iran, we intervene to shoot down the Iranian rockets that are heading towards Israel. So this is just an insane amount of money that we're sending in their direction so that they can continue behaving in a murderous and belligerent way throughout the region to impose their dominance on them. And on top of that, if there are some politicians who want to stop short of that, they don't want to call it military, I think it's morally indefensible to continue supplying Israel with any kind of weaponry. But for the people who don't want to go that far, the fact that we intervene at the UN, we've offered more than 50 vetoes at the UN Security Council to shield Israel from consequences for their actions. That's unconscionable. If you just change your posture and say, we're not going to provide any more protection for Israel, if you're going to break international law and commit crimes, you're on your own. That alone is a measure of accountability. But we have a policy of complete and total impunity for Israel at the expense of the United States, at the expense of America's standing in the world and the financial well-being of our own country. That Israel is a country that gives free healthcare to its people. We don't. We said we don't have the money for it. And yet we have tens of billions to give them in weapons so that they continue murdering on other people and imposing their will on the region. It's just utterly insane. And you could absolutely end it overnight if, and get this, in defense of American democracy, if the American government were responsive to the will of its people, this would end overnight. So what we're arguing for is not just the protection of Palestinians, it is arguing in favor of American democracy, of a government that is supposed to be responsive to what our people want and need. And that would
And
change
also
everything.
Jews. This is what Israel is doing is terrible for Jews. I mean, the spike in anti-Semitism, the spike in anti-Arab and anti-Muslim violence, the use and abuse of the genocide by hate mongers, Christian nationalists for their own agenda, the fact that Jews and Judaism are tied to Israel, which is what Netanyahu wants, the fact that Hannah Einbender said, as a Jew, they do not represent me, and ADL and Netanyahu are like, no, 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 Israel does. It's terrible for Jewish security. And furthermore, if you do expel all the Palestinians, okay, Israel, now you're surrounded by all these countries that you've bombed that hate you, and you've traumatized like generations of Palestinians who have nothing left. Do you think you'll be safer? Of course not. And furthermore, folks, I want to remind people that when it comes to violent Muslim extremists, one of their great recruitments is, look, the empire. U.S. helps Israel kill Muslims, right? That's what Al-Qaeda used. And furthermore, it also increases resentment and hate towards the United States and also our soldiers abroad. It is just a complete cluster F. It's just death and nihilism. And we continue this. It is so mind-boggling to me. But Omar, at least we have some good news, because you and me in our lifetime would have never imagined that a majority of Democrats, 27 including Bernie, would vote to stop sending arms to Israel. Would you have ever imagined that number?
Yeah, I really have not. I don't think that I was gonna. I mean, right, eventually, that's the goal we're all working for. I've worked on public opinion and public discourse on Israel and Palestine for a long time. And that was the goal, is to get to the point. I never could have imagined that we would have gotten here this quick. And the truth of the matter is, as much as I want to take credit for us having done amazing work, I think Israel did most of the work. They behaved in a way that is so monstrous that you've turned people against you. Like, if it doesn't even take that much organizing to get people to see how horrible this is. Just now, the last domino is translating that into political action. And we desperately need to shake our political establishment. I know that it sounds, I mean, just because Trump is an agent of chaos and is creating so much chaos domestically on a whole range of issues, it's hard to get people to focus on this one issue that desperately needs to change. But I still see urgency in this. This is ultimately about, as much as Trump is a horror on literally every single front, there's nothing that's happening that's worse in our foreign policy than what's being imposed on Gaza right now. And it just desperately needs to be put to an end.
And you know, just because I think that's a very important point, people say, why should I care? I did a piece recently called The New Axis of Evil, and it was Putin, Trump, and Netanyahu. And I said, Trump is the Fredo. This impacts all of us, folks. We have a base in Qatar. We have U.S. soldiers. Israel bombed Qatar. Whatever happens in Jerusalem echoes throughout the world. Anytime there's something that happens in Jerusalem, folks, that is like the node of the spider's web. And what we saw is that the world tried to move beyond Gaza and Palestine, including Muslim nations. They're like, occupation, let's do the Abraham Accords, everything will be fine. And then October 7th happened. The final question I have for you is hostages, right? There's still some hostages, and people say, well, Hamas still has the hostages. It seems clear that Netanyahu doesn't care about the hostages. Talk to us about the role. I mean, does Hamas have a role now, or is it just they don't even care? Are they just using Hamas as a... What happens if Hamas gives up the remaining hostages? Let's just say it. Assuming there's any hostages that are alive, suppose Hamas says, it's enough.
Yeah.
Here are the 6 hostages that you haven't killed, or that we haven't killed.
Yeah, it's funny because the starting position was Israel has thousands of Palestinian hostages already. And I use the word hostages carefully because these are people who are kidnapped and held in Israel without any charge or trial, essentially for the crime of being Palestinian, for doing either, verbal resistance or symbolic resistance, like throwing rocks at a tank or whatever. These are all actions that are perfectly legitimate under international law, but Israel treats them as a crime. That if you're talking about ways to resist the occupation, that's enough for Israel to throw you in jail. Again, no charge, no trial. So you had thousands of hostages held by Israel. And Hamas's idea is we kidnap Israeli soldiers and then we do an exchange. Of course, October 7th got out of hand. They ended up getting, capturing a lot more than they than the initial plan seemed to have been, including civilians, including children. It was horrible, and from my perspective, absolutely indefensible. You should never hold civilian hostages. Um, Nonetheless, the outcome was at this point, after not even at this point, honestly, well, many, many, many months ago, including a few months into Israel's genocide in Gaza, we reached the point where where Hamas was willing to give up all Israeli hostages in exchange for an end to the genocide and Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. And Israel said
that was
no.
the family of the hostages has said that. The negotiator of the
Yeah,
family of the hostages has said that
they've
also.
absolutely confirmed it. And Netanyahu's position now is sure, give up the hostages, surrender, disarm. And then the plan is still to ethnically cleanse Gaza. The plan is still what they call voluntary departure or whatever, relocation. There's nothing voluntary about destroying people's lives and livelihood and then say, if you want to live, you have to leave. You have the option to either stay here or die or leave and live. That is forced displacement. And that is the plan. I think they're going to leave Gaza in ruins no matter what. They're not going to allow it to be rebuilt. They're not going to allow for Palestinians to have any possibility of normal life in Gaza. And then they're going to say voluntary displacement, what relocation will give you money to help you go somewhere else and never come back. That is the plan. Trump sees it as an investment. He's talking about it openly as an opportunity to build casinos and whatever else in Gaza. I think that is plan A right now for both Netanyahu and for Trump. So it doesn't matter what Hamas does anymore. And that's really mind boggling for most people because Israeli trolls are trained and probably paid to get on social media and say, oh, you want this to end, then give up the hostages. You want the genocide to end, you got to give up the hostages. When Israeli leaders themselves have been explicit about the fact that that this would not change Israel's posture and behavior in
Smotrich
Gaza.
has said it.
And look at these negotiations. Hamas officials in Qatar were meeting to discuss the Trump proposal, and knowing that they were meaning to do that, Israel decided to bomb them and take them out. So essentially, the ruse of a possibility of an end to this genocide was used as a way to bait Hamas leaders to meet so that they could bomb them because they're not interested in a deal. There is no deal on the table that Israel would accept unless it is imposed on them. And that imposition can only come through meaningful American pressure or, more devastatingly, a war getting completely out of hand throughout the region, which I really worry about, Watch. I don't think that we're out of it. I think
No,
the
no, no.
possibility of Lebanon exploding again, the possibility of another confrontation with Iran, I think those have very, very high likelihood
Well,
to happen.
you're missing out Syria. You're missing out the Houthis in Yemen, and also violent extremist forces that are not beholden to any government but are independent. Um, I don't think people are paying attention. I think
Yeah.
this is going to explode, folks. These things don't stay contained. And it reminds me of like the war on terror, the America's choice on the war on terror. They thought they could control it, and we've witnessed the devastating consequences both abroad and domestically. We don't have the leadership. We have a man who wants to build the Riviera in the Middle East, who's released gaudy AI videos of him and Benjamin Netanyahu, a war criminal, sitting poolside as Palestinian children have lost their limbs and are being killed. This is a genocide, folks. If you don't believe me, believe the United Nations Commission came out, said it today. Joins B'Tselem, joins Human Rights Watch, joins Doctors Without Borders, joins the International Committee of Scholars on Genocide. Look at the evidence of your eyes and ears. And if you're American right now watching this, we have the means with our votes, our voice, and our money to actually stop this genocide. If we keep pushing our elected officials, they can stop it. And to end on some hope, Zoran Mamdani is going to be the next mayor. Jeffries and Schumer, who are complete cucks of corporate money and AIPAC, are only going to hurt themselves more and more and more as they delay endorsing him. Hochul finally came out 2 days ago and endorsed because she sees where the wind is blowing. You had 27 Democratic senators say enough sending weapons. You have, I think, a dozen elected Democratic officials using the word genocide now. It should be all of them, but the fact that you got it. So this is why, again, when people say, why are you critical? Is because we, as Americans, using our voice, can influence our elected officials, especially Democrats and even some Republicans, to put pressure and say enough to genocide. Omar, I kept you longer than I said I would. Final word to you, sir.
Yep. Waj, just grateful for the fact that you're making space for voices on this particular issue. It is absolutely critical. It is the test of time. History will remember this period, and what we do in this moment. Our grandchildren will absolutely ask us what we did when this genocide was unfolding, and we need to have a good answer for it. I think this is not going to be one of those things where there are policy issues, there are policy differences, there are policy opinions. Genocide is not just a policy difference or opinion. There is no such thing. I've always prided myself on the fact that I have friends across the entire political spectrum, and we disagree on a lot of things. This is a different kind of issue. This is not just a policy disagreement. This is a people being destroyed for who they are. And if you don't have the mind and the heart and the moral compass to know that this is the time to speak up, I don't think that there's a redeeming quality for any person who remains silent throughout this. So just desperately urge everybody who's listening and watching, do whatever is in your power, contact your member of Congress, speak up, contact your media outlet, donate money where you can to people who are trying to feed starving people in Gaza. There's just a multitude of ways that people can intervene.
What's a good organization that you like?
I think for people who would like to donate, there's the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund is doing a lot of important work. Of course, they have trouble getting into Gaza, but once once there is a path to get people out of Gaza, they absolutely would be very, very critical. And then there is an organization, UNRWA USA. I know that there's a war on UNRWA right now, but there's a nonprofit that is US based that is safe to donate to. And they are doing an incredible job trying to get food into the parts of Gaza that they can get food into. So that would absolutely be worth supporting as well. So in any way that people can plug in and fight for the survival of Palestinians so that we can get them to the point to where they can witness with us the change in policy that is inevitably coming. We just are in a fight against time, and we have to help Palestinians endure and survive until there's that change in policy and until Palestine is free.
There's no both sides when it comes to genocide, when it comes to occupation, when it comes to apartheid, and when it comes to fascism. You can both sides a lot of things. You can't both sides those things. You got to take a side. And right now, as Omar said, we're witnessing a genocide in real time streamed to our phones. And especially if you're in Europe and America listening to this, we as residents and citizens actually have the means to use our votes, our money, and our voice to influence our politicians to end this occupation, end this war, end this genocide. Omar, shamelessly promote yourself.
People can just find me by searching my name on social media. It's different handles at different places, but just if you put Omar Baddar either in YouTube or formerly Twitter or Instagram or whatever, you'll find me.
There's 1,000 people watching this, which makes me very happy. I know whenever we talk about domestic politics, we get 1,500, 2,000, but this is a very important issue. Folks, Israel has announced earlier today it's going to launch its ground war in Gaza, genocide. They want complete occupation. The United Nations came out today and called it Israel has committed a genocide in Gaza, according to the UN Commission of Inquiry. We're seeing a cultural pushback at the Emmys for the first time ever. Javier Bardem with the Kefia, Hannah Einbinder. You're seeing Democratic senators, step up. Kathy Hochul, finally, what took her so long? Endorsed Mamdani. So this is an issue that's not going away. It is not going away. And for those who are joining us a bit late, we kind of went through it. We connected the dots. For those who don't know, who aren't, don't understand this much, we hope this was informative and hopeful and useful. My guest has been Omar Baddar. He is an expert on Israel and Palestine, a commentator. You've seen him on international news and domestic news. He was my former colleague at Al Jazeera America, the stream, a little violin for the stream. We kept it alive for a while. And I'll have links to Omar and his work for all of you who joined us a bit late. This will be up later tonight at the Left Hook. No paywalls. Everything's free. Please subscribe. If you have a few bucks, become a paid subscriber. And in about 5 minutes, I'm going to have attorney Chris Geidner come out and talk to us about free speech for me, hate speech for thee. MAGA's crackdown on our civil liberties, which is happening in real time, folks. Scary, scary times. This is McCarthyism. This is fascism. And we have to fight back. I'll see you all in 3 minutes. Thank you, Omar.
Great seeing you, Waj. Take care.
Take care.